You know that feeling, right? You look at a deadline that's weeks away and you think, oh yeah, I've got plenty of time. And then, all of a sudden, you're in a complete, full-blown panic 24 hours before it's due. Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive deep into Tim Urban's fantastic TED Talk to figure out what's really going on inside the mind of a master procrastinator. So our story kicks off in college with a task that, well, it's familiar to a lot of us, writing a massive 90-page senior thesis. A whole year to do it. For a self-proclaimed master procrastinator, this was basically the final boss battle. Now, a normal student, they might, spread the work out, do a little bit here, a little bit there over time. But a procrastinator's workflow, it looks a little different. It's pretty much just nothing, followed by a sudden, terrifying wave of activity that's fueled by pure, unadulterated panic. For this big thesis, the plan was, okay, this time it's going to be different. A nice, sensible staircase of progress. But the first few months, they just kind of came and went, no work done. So the plan got revised. Then the next few months passed. And then, suddenly, 2 months became 1 month, which became 2 weeks. Until finally, with just 3 days left until the deadline, not a single word had been written. That's right, 72 hours. That was the entire window to write a 90-page thesis from scratch. It meant pulling not 1, but 2 all-nighters, something our bodies are just not designed for. And it all ended in a mad sprint across campus to turn it in at the very, very last second. So then, a week later, the phone rings. It's the school. And you can just imagine the dread, right? But they say, we need to talk about your thesis. It's the best one we've ever seen. An unbelievable, heroic victory against all odds. What a story. Except, yeah, that is not what happens at all. In reality, it was a very, very bad thesis. And this whole crazy experience, it really brings up a big question. Why? I mean, why do we do this to ourselves? Seriously, why would anyone put themselves through that? What is actually going on up here in our heads that makes us sabotage our own carefully laid plans? So the working theory was pretty simple. Maybe, just maybe, the brains of procrastinators are actually physically different from the brains of people who don't procrastinate. And here's the proposed difference. See, both brains have a rational decision maker at the helm. But the procrastinator's brain, it has a special guest. A little co-pilot, the instant gratification monkey. And this little guy, he changes everything. So who is this monkey? Well, he's a simple creature, really. He has zero concept of the past, no knowledge of the future. He just exists entirely in the now, and he's driven by a very, very simple philosophy. The monkey's whole life philosophy boils down to just 2 rules. Do what's easy and do what's fun. Now, in the animal kingdom, that's a great recipe for success. But for a human trying to write a thesis, it's a total recipe for disaster, and it creates this constant battle for control. So you've got the rational decision maker saying, okay, it's time to get some work done, and the monkey just yanks the wheel and says, nope, let's go watch a 3-hour deep dive on Wikipedia about the history of toast. And that's the core struggle right there. So where does the monkey drive us? He takes us to this place called the dark playground. On the surface, it looks like fun. You're scrolling social media, binging a show, but it's not actually fun. It's leisure time that is completely poisoned by guilt, anxiety, and this awful dread about the thing you're supposed to be doing. Which brings us to the most important point. If this monkey is always hijacking the controls and steering us into the miserable dark playground, how does a procrastinator ever accomplish anything hard? Well, it turns out there's a kind of guardian angel in this system. The panic monster. He's asleep most of the time, but he wakes up when a deadline gets terrifyingly close or when the threat of public humiliation becomes very, very real. And here's the key. The panic monster is the only thing the instant gratification monkey is afraid of. So the whole system works like this. The rational part of your brain makes a sensible plan. The monkey immediately grabs the wheel and ignores it. You waste a bunch of time in the dark playground until a deadline gets too close, which wakes up the panic monster. The monster starts screaming, the monkey runs and hides up a tree, and finally the rational decision maker can get back in control and get to work. It's a mess, but for things with deadlines, it kind of works. But, and this is a big but, here's where the story takes a much more serious turn. Because this system, which sounds kind of funny when we're talking about a college paper, actually has a really dark side. You see, after Tim Urban wrote about this, he got thousands of emails from people all over the world, and they weren't laughing. They were writing with this intense frustration about how this little monkey had basically wreaked havoc on their lives. And this revealed a much deeper, much sneakier problem. It turns out there are really two kinds of procrastination. The first kind has deadlines. The panic monster eventually shows up, and the damage is sort of contained. But that second kind, the really dangerous kind, it has no deadlines at all. And in those situations, the panic monster never wakes up to save you. And think about what falls into that category. It's all the most important things in life. Starting that business you've been dreaming about, pursuing something creative, taking care of your health, spending time with your family, or working on a tough relationship. None of these have a hard deadline. There's no final exam to wake up the panic monster. So the monkey can just keep you in the dark playground forever. And this is the real tragedy of long-term procrastination. The deep frustration isn't about failing to achieve your dreams. It's the soul-crushing feeling of never even getting to start. It's about feeling like a spectator in your own life, just watching the weeks and months and years slip by. So this all brings us to a final, really powerful idea that I think everyone needs to see. It's a way to make this abstract concept of your life feel incredibly real and, well, finite. This is a life calendar. Every single box here represents 1 week of a 90-year life. And when you see it all laid out like this, it just hits you. There really aren't that many boxes. And you've already used up a whole bunch of them. Our time is limited. So the crucial point is this. We are all procrastinating on something. We all have to think about those important, no-deadline things in our lives. We have to be aware of our own instant gratification monkey, because there really aren't that many boxes left on the calendar for any of us. And maybe, just maybe, the time to start is today.